Hello and welcome back to the MMA Split. I'm Matt,
I'm Josh.
and we have got a great week and a great show ahead of us. Um, Two shows coming up this week. This is the first of our recordings, covering everything that happened during Max Holloway versus Calvin Kattar, the whole UFC Fight Island 7 card, and we'll be looking ahead to the much anticipated UFC Fight Island 8 card, featuring the headliner between Neil Magny and Michael Chiesa, but many more great fights aside from that. And we have had one hell of a weekend of action to ring in the new year of 2021. So buckle up if you're not a fan already or you haven't done already. Please like and subscribe. And Josh, I don't know where else to start. Last weekend's card was spectacular.
Yeah, this was a really good card. I had a lot of fun watching this one. And it was great for us having it on at like a reasonable hour.
Oh,
Like not
so
having to
good.
watch it the following Sunday. That's always a treat for us. Um, this is a really good card. I thought the prelims were really fun. I've got to be honest. When we got to the main cards, we get the first knockout of the night, and they reference, "Hey, this is the first knockout of 2021." I was even like, "Wow, they were all decisions in the prelims. Great fights though. There were some where I was surprised we didn't get stoppages, to be honest. And we might as well kick it off right away with the opening fight. Um, Jason Kilburn against Austin Lingo. Yeah, I, how tough is Kilburn? I can't believe he survived that first round, let alone the entire fight.
Well, I will go back because obviously me and Josh had made some picks on last week's show for this particular card.
Oh
And
yeah,
this was first night. We actually both got this one right. We both predicted that Austin Lingo looked a little bit more impressive in his loss against Zalal than Kilburn had done in his loss against Billy Quarantier. But we thought both guys had shown enough to think that they could do something down the line. Um, Kilburn, he really got hit with some big shots, and he showed some serious heart and a hell of a chin to stay in this one. I thought this was not going to be stopped end of the first round, beginning of the second. And to be fair to him, he kind of outlasted Lingo's pace a little bit. You could tell by the end of round two, Lingo was looking pretty exhausted. And you started thinking maybe he could just pull something off. But in the end, I just thought Lingo had more weapons. I thought he just looked faster, more aggressive, more technical. But I liked what I saw from Kilburn. I think he needs to do a little bit more work. I think you could see where the technical deficiencies were quite quickly when he was matched up
yeah,
against Austin. Um, but hey, if you've got heart like that, you're gonna at least do something in the sport.
yeah. And I think it hurt him getting rocked so early as well. You know, Lingo didn't give him a lot of space, a lot of time to recover. Definitely made it hard for him to get into the fight early. So, I'm definitely going to remember these two. Next time they fight, it's going to be two guys I'm just going to sort of low key follow for a while. But I thought this was a really fun night, and to be honest, right off the bat, you kind of like, maybe this could be fight of the night, and then that honor just kept getting taken away and taken away. The whole night
Well,
continued to build,
yeah,
with the exception of some of them actually.
and
But
obviously, definitely worth mentioning. This was the first UFC card on ABC. Interestingly enough, they mentioned this in the broadcast a few times. The first time that a live fight has been broadcast on ABC in close to 25 years. And you look back at some of the great legendary boxing matches that were put on this network, Muhammad Ali, Smoking Joe Frazier, all of the greats, Lennox Lewis, Mike Tyson, Roy Jones Jr., Bernard Hopkins. This was a big moment for the UFC, and I think it was a little bit of an underrated card. When you go through into the card hole by hole, there weren't as many big stars as we're going to necessarily see when we discuss on our next episode's show, 257. But everybody delivered. And this is becoming a bit of a running trend for the UFC, where guys that maybe aren't current stars or big names right now are always being matched up well, and we're always getting great entertainment.
yeah, I mean, we did have a couple, one in particular lopsided fight on this card. Can't blame the matchmaking too much on that one, I suppose. Yeah, the matchmaking has been really good this year. The UFC have taken kind of tighter control of their recruitment with Contender Series. They get to have a deeper look at these guys. It's not like you win one fight in the Contender Series and that's it. You're into the UFC. They're people they bring back time and time again, waiting for the right matchups for them or waiting for the right kind of need when when COVID strikes and the cards start to fall apart. But the UFC are becoming much, much more efficient in their recruitment. And one of the consequences of that is that we are getting some really good matchups.
Absolutely, absolutely. And before I say anything else, obviously, I just want to kind of do a bit of an overround recap. We saw some amazing underdog performances on this card, some massive underdog wins, some great finishes, excellent fights. There's a few people I feel that we need to apologize to quite quickly. And before we do anything else, I do want to get this out, because obviously we made some predictions, and as we've done on previous episodes of this show, we've said some things that we can't take back. And I'd like to say a quick apology to Jocelyn Edwards. I didn't know who you were. It turns out I should have known who you were. It turns out I'm going to need to know who you are and watch a lot of your old fights, because you're looking very impressive.
Hey, it's not our fault, Matt. Look, at the end of the day, if you don't know, now you know.
Now
right?
you know. Alessio Di Chirico, I described you as and person. Literally said, person they have put for Joaquin Buckley to knock out. We'll get to you, especially you, because you had a couple of amazing moments on this card. But I'm sorry. I apologize. I'd like to apologize to the Leech. I'd like to definitely apologize to Soriano. Sometimes you get things wrong. But after fight number one, I was feeling pretty good. I was 1-for-0 on my picks, as were you. Lingo had looked impressive, and we'd had a great start to the card, which unfortunately took us on to my least favorite fight of the card.
Yeah, well, obviously, yeah, we've seen a lot more of Sarah Morris. You know, this is someone that we don't think's going to make light work of every woman she goes up against. But we know she's a very capable fighter. What can you say? It was just a great performance from the Puerto Rican. Dominic? Oh no, I need to look it up.
Yeah, Vanessa Melo looked. Well, it was an interesting one, I have to say. This was my least favorite fight of the card, hands down. I picked Vanessa Melo to win. You picked Sarah Moraes.
Sorry, I don't know why we're talking about the Jocelyn Edwards one.
That's why. She is Panamanian, and we will get to her in a second.
Sorry, making it easy for the edit. Then I'll just come back in at the start here. All right. Yeah, I've seen a lot more of Sarah Morris. I felt confident. She's a very capable fighter. She's a decent fighter. Vanessa Melo, she's someone that has struggled to make weight before. She's crazy going from flyweight to bantamweight. She then struggled to make 135. I thought after a couple of losses, maybe the mentality was gone. Maybe she just wasn't really ready for this, and that just wasn't the case.
No. I picked Melo. You'd picked Moraes. I think what's interesting about this is the fight was better than I was expecting it to be. I had really low expectations. And I'm not 100% sure about the result, to be honest, even though I ended up getting the right pick. And my word is, people are going to find out I needed to get these early picks right, or it would have been a very bad night for me. I thought that Sarah Moraes moved and jabbed very well. The only question was, it was very difficult to score when Vanessa Melo was landing very infrequently, but very significantly. And Sarah Moraes, God bless it, you just never felt that anything that she threw had any damage whatsoever. And I think that's what really hurt her.
The jab was the only punch she had that kind of looked good. I wasn't really overly impressed with either too much. Morris has now lost 5 of her last 6 fights. Melo, sorry, it wasn't a 2-fight skid, 3-fight skid she snapped with that win. I don't think Melo's going to get cut. I think the next time she misses weight and loses, she'll get cut. Morris, I think that might be it for her. Did you see her fighting again in the UFC?
No, we've had this discussion before, and I know there's exceptions, but if you're kiaing every single time you throw a strike and it's the first round, I can completely understand nearing the end of a fight, something that you're throwing with some real aggression, and that vocal exertion helps you put an extra amount of effort and force into it. But I just feel there's something very amateur when the whole reason people teach you to kia when you throw a strike in martial arts is to remember to breathe properly, so that you're not holding your breath as you strike. And it's just a very good way of getting that practice right. But I felt that it always shows a certain amateur skill set in terms of striking. And I didn't see her utilize any grappling. I kind of thought that she just thought, I don't want to get hit by this woman. I don't want to go anywhere near. I don't want to engage in anything even close to being inside the pocket. And it's not that you can't win a fight if you're circling around and jabbing, but I can't blame two judges for thinking that nothing that she did was significant or damage relating. And Melo was landing at least a little bit in every single round, and she was the forward aggressor.
Yeah, I agree. Sarah Morris just really couldn't put anything together after that jab. It just, if for me, this was kind of like the one kind of spotty fight on a really solid card.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah, I don't think either girl is going to be fighting in the UFC for very long. I know it's a bit harsh to say, but there's a lot. There are a lot of much better fighters at 135.
I agree with that. And the thing is this isn't. The only thing I'd say is this is a division that is starting to need fighters more and more. A lot of girls went down to flyweight. I think you're starting to see flyweight become a bit more established, a bit deeper, a bit more competitive. And a dominant champion has a way of scaring girls away. I know that obviously flyweight does have a dominant champion, but I don't think there's the same fear factor. I think you're worried about getting outclassed when you fight Shevchenko. A champion like Nunes makes you, it's the Mike Tyson effect. Suddenly you look at the scales, like, you know what? I can cut an extra 10 pounds. What are we talking about here? Fucking eat some salads, drink some soups. We're all good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, she retires people. You know, she retired Tate. She retired Rousey. She changes your life. You know, not for the better. Definitely a scary prospect at the top of the tree.
Agreed. You know, it's the one thing we've talked about this before. You know, we're huge fans of the women's weight classes in UFC and MMA in general, but there aren't as many competitors. These divisions don't tend to be as deep, so we are able to see a fighter with a 6-8 record or a 11-8 record still remain in the division just to make up the numbers. So who knows? Maybe they get cut, maybe they don't. I'm not seeing. I don't know about you. I haven't seen any really exciting bantamweight debuters recently. I've seen some flyweight debuts. I've seen a lot in strawweight, and I've seen a couple of girls come in from featherweight, but I'm not seeing it in bantamweight. You know, I mean, think about who the two arguments for number one contender are at the moment. It's Holly Holm and Jermaine Durandamy. Apart from Aspen Ladd, there's no one else in that division who's viewed as an up-and-comer. Now go to flyweights. You've got Macy Barber, you've got Gillian Robertson, you've got Taylor Santos. You know, you've got Andrade who's joined the division. You've got excitement brewing. You've got exactly the same thing with strawweight. We know featherweight sucks, but we're not seeing it with bantamweight. I mean, God bless Sarine Aldana, but I don't think that she should ever really been in the consideration as a title contender, other than they're just desperate. So that's the only thing I'd say in terms of cutting those girls. You're not, unless you're replacing them with talent, I don't know what you're doing for yourself.
Yeah, looking down, really, I think Pani Kianzad's got some untapped potential. It'll be interesting to see what she can do.
That's true.
Juliana Pena, now that she's back full time again, it'll be interesting to see if she can take some more strides forward, because she is very, very impressive athlete. You know, she can be very scary on her day. But yeah, it's not a deep division. I feel like Dana White, though, has never been the kind of guy to, if there's a division that isn't showing him love, he doesn't necessarily want to keep it deep. You know, he all but decimated the flyweight division not that long ago for the men's, the men's 125ers. But now that's one of my favorite divisions again. That got really exciting all of a sudden.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It can change, but Melo's going nowhere. I wouldn't be surprised if Moraes survives, if not just to be fed to some new girl that they eventually find to replace her. But in terms of the UFC looking to make cuts, in terms of the overstacked divisions, I don't think bantamweight is one of them.
Yeah. I don't know if they're planning a card in Canada this year, maybe they retain Canadian fighters just for that card. But you know, like you were telling me before, Dana White wasn't overly impressed with the prelims. This one kind of justifies that. The other fights definitely don't. Do you want to move on to the next one?
We'll move on to the next one. Sorry, that's just we're hoping to be joined by Elliot a little bit later in the show. Who's obviously been an appearance on one of our shows beforehand. He's a busy man. He's got a lot on. I'm just trying to see if we can get him onto the show. But yes, not the most exciting of fights, unfortunately. And let's move on because I thought the next fight was excellent. Zawada versus Ramazan Ameev. I had picked Zawada. You had picked Ameev. I was wrong, but it was a close fight.
Yeah,
really close fight.
A lot closer than I thought it would be. I think Zawada really came out with a great aggressive game plan, really threw Ameev off. One thing I noticed with Ameev, whatever he's trying to do, mixing up, whether he's looking to kind of throw the other hand right or change levels, he keeps his head a little too low and he'll lose sight of his opponent. And Zawada just wasn't having any of it. Really strong. Anytime, he kind of got him in the clinch, Zawada was able to reverse, escape. When he got him down, had his back in the first round, Zawada just did the old Derek Lewis, just stood the fuck up. I thought it was a great fight.
Yeah.
Actually, I had it for Zawada. It was a very, very close fight, but I was a bit surprised when my pick came in on this one.
I was obviously a little biased, but I expected it to be for Zawada. I can't argue with it though. You know what I mean? It's that old battle of strikes landed versus more top control on the ground, and
yeah, it wasn't a robbery.
No, and what I would say is that I thought Zawada made mistakes. If I'm honest, he got taken down a couple too many times from trying to land knees to the head in the clinch.
Yeah,
when it was a little bit unnecessary. So I think there's loads of talent there. I think if you shore up a bit of the decision making, if you get a few fundamentals down, he's clearly got power. The striking looked really, really crisp. He handled a lot of the takedown defense needs a bit of work, but I felt he put himself in trouble more often than not.
Yeah, I think it was kind of a sacrifice to his strategy. He wanted to stop Ameev being able to think about changing levels so often by keep peppering in with that knee coming, step in knees. If you want to come out aggressive and kind of look to really kind of rock the guy and change the fight, sort of like Lingo did in the opening fight with Kilburn, you can have a lot of success with that. Unfortunately, Zawada, I mean, I can't criticize his strategy too much because I didn't think this was going to be a close fight, and he really made it one. I even had it scored for him, but yeah, you're right. The goal, if you really want to be a champion and keep climbing up the rankings, you want to be perfect, not just good. And any kind of risky game plan like that means that you've got holes in your game, and that's something you really want to focus on in your training. Ramazan Ameev, he got it done, but again, very flawed performance. A lot he can work on. Still, I don't want to criticize either fighter too much because I thought it was a good fight.
Excellent fight. I was annoyed that my pick didn't come in, I'm not going to lie, from a split decision. And for the next two fights on the card, this is going to be a bit of a running trend. Carlos Felipe versus Justin Tafa.
Yeah, I was like, now that's fight of the night.
I picked Tafa to win this. I was not expecting this fight to be as good as it was. I still thought Tafa won it. He didn't.
Again. Yeah.
So that's two I lose. Two I lose on the prelims from split decisions. That even Josh, who got the other pick, is kind of like, you know what?
I had that one scored for Tafa as well.
But all that aside, they're young guys in the heavyweight division. They're 26 and 27. They've got like 6 years before they need to be good. And they are so much fun. Like Carlos Felipe, usually such a shit talker in the octagon. Justin Tafa had him quiet. Justin Taffer was calm in that first round, composed, landing powerful singular strikes, not wasting too much energy, very efficient. And I think Carlos Felipe was a little overwhelmed. I think he thought, okay, this guy's not making mistakes. He's powerful. He's focused. And even halfway through round 2, I just thought this is Taffer's all day long. And then just Carlos Felipe lands I don't know what happens, but he lands a right hand or a left hand that hurts Taffer's eye. All of a sudden the fight changes, and then that third round is just crazy.
Yeah.
And how nobody got knocked out. The showmanship, the gamesmanship, then both going into close-in inside boxing positions. Boxing's going to be a theme of this evening with the best fights, but it was great. It was absolutely brilliant, and I think both guys loved it. Obviously, Taffer's disappointed. I think he showed enough to think that he should have got 2 rounds to 1. But it's the same as the Ameev Zawada fight, that there's enough there that means you can't really call it a robbery.
Yeah, it was a close fight. I was surprised again that my pick came in. But again, like an all-out war. The great thing with Justin Taffer is this has been a consistent theme in all of his fights. The guy comes to have an exciting war. He's not afraid of having a barn burner every time he steps out there. Probably not the best thing for his health, but a really exciting guy to watch.
Absolutely. And like I said, I mean, they're so young for the heavyweight division. That Taffer is now 4-2. 3 fights inside the UFC. I mean, he's brand new. He is brand new. And I think fundamentally, I think there's a lot of promise there. I think give him a few more fights, let him figure some stuff out. I think Carlos Felipe is just a bit further along in that development. And I think Carlos Felipe is a really good volume striker, which I always like to see in the heavyweight division.
Yeah, and he mixed that up well with the body and the head. I was really impressed with both guys. Yeah, you're right. 4-2 for Taffer. But Taffer, he gets the right run of results. In the heavyweight division, you put 2 or 3 wins together, you're definitely going to be fighting against a ranked guy, possibly a top 5 guy. So I think Taffer's one of those guys that's always going to be a danger, always a threat to end the fight. I can't believe this one went 3 rounds. You're right. That was absolutely insane.
Do you know who I'd like to see Taffer fight next?
Go on.
Greg Hardy.
Yeah. You're right. If we're not cutting him, feed him to Taffer. I could get behind that.
Okay. Taffer lost to De Castro, but he's clearly a better fighter.
Yeah.
Clearly a better fighter. Way more promise. He's younger.
Just got caught.
He just got caught. He's learning quickly. I think that him versus Greg Hardy would be a good fight for both guys. Because I say that Taffer, he might have not gone on the fastest pace, but he was throwing right till the end of the 3rd round. There is no issue of gas tank in that with that man.
Yeah.
Absolutely no issue. And he's got power. And I'll say this, Greg Hardy looked technical in his last fight. He looked a lot more technical than he'd looked in his previous fights.
He looked improved. I wouldn't go so far as to say technical, but much improved. He, given enough time, he could probably be an okay MMA fighter. I think if you put him up against Taffer, Matt, I don't know. That's a very close fight.
Maybe not, but I think it's a fight. Okay. If Greg Hardy can't beat guys like that in their 4th UFC fight when he's on his 7th or 8th, coming in with
that many already.
He's had a few, man. I don't know what his record would be, but I think you'd be surprised. He's fought. Let's see. He's fought.
Volkov,
Crowther, Morris Green. The Australian guy that he got the DQ against.
No, the DQ was Crowder. After that,
no, he had a no contest as well for the inhaler. Which fight was Inhalergate? Australian heavyweight.
Yeah, Ben Sassoli.
That's the one.
Or Sassoli. So yeah, Juan Adams, Dmitry Smolyakov, and Marcin Tybura, obviously last time out.
About 6 or 7, surely.
Yeah, 7th. So the next one will be his 8th.
So yeah, you know,
UFC
other
vet
thing
at this
with
stage, that feels weird.
the other thing you got to say with Greg Hardy, he's not young.
No, but
He's
it's
not.
his second pro sport.
Yeah, and you've got to expect a sharp learning curve because otherwise we're going to get to a point where it's like, what's happening here?
Yeah, and
Are you gonna be able to do this?
It's not like his last sport didn't put a lot of wear and tear on his body. You know, he's got a lot of miles on him coming into the sport. So
no, absolutely.
I don't think anyone gets out of the NFL without some form of CTE. Just the damage done to your back and your knees playing that sport as well.
Also, you spend a lifetime learning how to explode for 20 seconds and then rest for a minute. It's not a good athletic basis unless you're coming from like a safety position where you're just sprinting a lot more, and I think it's requiring a bit more action. It's very explosive, but it's not one that builds in a stamina. You don't build it doesn't teach you how to last.
Yeah. I think outside of sort of the skill positions, the defensive backfield, a lot of them are just kind of explode and rest, and that was definitely Greg Hardy's position. Kind of playing defensive end, linebacker sometimes. You know, he was just a pass rusher. That's what he did. Just sprint down to the quarterback and push through everyone in the way. He is getting better and better. He's not ready for Taffa. I think Taffa would put too much volume on him.
Can I just point this out? They thought he was ready for Marcin Tybura. I would just use that as a point of reference. Now, he clearly wasn't. But Marcin Tybura is a good fighter. Marcin Tybura is a ranked fighter.
Yeah. No, he's a great fighter. He was definitely not ready for that fight. He wasn't ready for the Volkov fight. I was surprised, that he got Morris Green out of there, but Morris Green's not that great.
Okay, how about this one then? What about a Tanner Bosa for Taffa?
For Taffa? Yeah, I think that'd be a fun fight. Bosa's coming off a loss as well, right?
Correct, Mundo. He lost to Arlovsky.
Of course he did.
Kind of showed that he's maybe just wasn't quite ready for that next step.
Yeah, and not the biggest guy at heavyweight.
That's what makes it fun.
It's an interesting kind of clash of heavyweight styles. The sort of more mobile Bosa against the certainly not like stuck in the muds, but maybe not as agile or fleet of foot with Justin Taffa. Yeah, I'd like to see that one a lot more than I'd like to see the Greg Hardy fight. I think I want to see Greg Hardy fight somewhere else.
Well, we're well aware of that on this podcast. Josh's opinions on Greg Hardy, and they are supported here.
I'm gobby. I don't apologize as much as Matt does.
I don't apologize for myself. I just apologize for other people. It's way easier.
I'm a mouthy prick. What do you want?
If you're watching us, it's probably what you're here for.
Yeah. It's weird to think that people might be here. I don't know.
Mate,
hey, Elliot,
we've got 5 subscribers, and at least 2 of them are not me.
I need to subscribe.
You really do. You really do. Support the channel. We're small here. We're trying to get to 10 subscribers, guys. Help us get to 10 subscribers. And then we'll build up from there. Anyway, moving on as we do to what turned out to be the main event of the prelims. It wasn't initially meant to be the main event. Obviously, when we initially recorded our show, we were also expecting to see Akhmedov versus Breeze, which has now been moved to the Wednesday card, and we'll be discussing it again and recapping our thoughts when we do our predictions for UFC Fight Island 8. We also were meant to be getting Phil Hawes fighting in the main event of the prelims, a fighter that's already had his debut, scored a very impressive 18-second knockout, and we were incredibly excited to see perform. But that fight got pulled, apparently, due to contracting issues.
What?
Yep.
Contracting issues.
Contract issues.
On whose end?
I believe. Nope. I believe on the opponent's side. Remind me his name again.
Oh man, I picked Phil Hawes and then I can't.
We both picked Phil Hawes by knockout. Who's the guy? We don't have a young Jamie. One of us has got to look this up, and it takes time.
We do, and he's even said he's going to do it, but he's just never here.
He's having second thoughts. He doesn't think he'd be good enough.
He's concerned about being on-screen talent, which is ridiculous.
But he doesn't want to do any of the background work that off-screen talent does. It's a weird anomaly.
Yeah, to be honest, it is a role that could be done remotely. So, and all we ask is that you subscribe. So if that's something you're interested in doing and people have actually watched this,
we will give you 10% of all the money that we currently make from this. Not 10% of what we'll make in the future, but 10% of what we're making right now. And you may think that it's not a lot, but it's like a mystery box. This is like a loot box on FIFA. You might be surprised. Lionel Messi might be in that silver pack. He's not in that silver pack. Don't buy the loot boxes. They're evil. Everyone's suing FIFA.
Yeah, and obviously you can see how many times this has been watched, so you know that's 10% of nothing. If you haven't figured that out, don't contact us. I don't want anyone dumb. You know, you have to be at least, it's not a high bar. You need to be at least as smart as us.
And you really got to be in it for the passion.
Yeah. By the way, it was Nasruddin Imavov. Phil Hawes was scheduled to fight.
Yeah. He had some contracting issues. The other fight, I believe, was pushed back because of COVID or injury or something. I can't remember the exact details, but something happened. And that is why they are fighting on Wednesday. To be honest, I'm not overly upset about it. I thought this card flowed really nicely. Yeah. And on top of that, I feel like next week's card needs that fight on its prelims.
I think that's a fair assessment.
It needed that fight on its prelims more than this one did. But instead, we got Yanan Wu, who we both predicted to win, fighting off against Jocelyn Edwards, who we didn't know anything about. And we need to watch more Invicta because this girl was seriously impressive. Not that I didn't think Yanan Wu offered something. And there's, again, a strong argument. It was a split decision. Yeah. 4 decisions on the prelims were split decisions. So this isn't an easy one to call. But I felt Jocelyn Edwards did enough. I felt there was a serious threat of submission in the first round.
I thought the first round was great.
First round was a lot of fun.
Yeah. The way she switched from the submission to going for ground and pound at the end. So I try and get a fly out of the way. It's really impressive. Just so impressive. It was a really good fight. I thought this was really cool. I think this was Yanan Wu's debut at flyweight, moving up from 115. So I don't know if maybe size would be an issue for her. She kind of like climbs the rankings, but you know, both girls impressed for me. I thought this was a really cool fight.
I felt she looked undersized. I felt she looked very undersized.
You know, you're never going to get them to put in a division between strawweight and flyweight. So it's something she's going to have to figure out. But, you know, moving up a weight class can take time. Maybe she can add a bit more muscle to the frame. So
first fight in a year and a half. She didn't fight in 2020.
2020 was a weird year. All right. If 2020 wasn't your best year, I'll forgive you. You know,
ring rust is going to become a theme that appears later in the show, as we're going to get to. But yeah, Jocelyn Edwards really impressed me. Really, really impressed me. Yanan Wu's still got a future, like you say. I think, you know, first fight in a year and a half, you've got to allow for ring rust. You've got to give her another shot, see what she can do. And also Jocelyn Edwards, she's dangerous. She's going to come into this division and she's going to immediately start causing problems.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, Yanan Wu, how much did she really get to prepare for Edwards? How much did she really know about her? I think we were all a bit surprised. In a good way, though. In a great way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But yeah, it was 5 decisions on the prelims. Dana was a little funny about that. I had a great time with these. I thought it was really good. I thought we had 4 really entertaining fights. 1 excellent fight in the heavyweights, slinging away. And I thought it led us really nicely into the main card. And then my picks just completely and utterly started crumbling like the wind. At this point, I was 2 right and 3 wrong. You, I think, were 3 right and 2 wrong. Am I correct?
Yes. Yeah. So I messed up Morris and Wu.
Yeah. I was a little annoyed that all 3 of mine were on split decisions, but I'll live with it because The next three that I got wrong were not split decisions. They were fairly conclusive, and I can't argue with it. Dusko Todorovic kicked off our main card against Soriano. Punahele Soriano?
Punahele Soriano, yeah.
Didn't
Or
know anything about
Puna.
this guy, or Puna. Didn't know anything about this guy. I saw Todorovic when he fought Dequan Townsend and absolutely tore him to pieces, and thought, this is the guy. Made my pick. And for that first minute and a half, you're thinking, this guy is brilliant. I mean, he's slipping away, he's dodging punches, he's moving around. And I was watching, obviously, with my cousin and flatmate Tom next to me, and we're both just going, the confidence of this guy, the confidence. And then he gets caught. And once he gets caught, Soriano does not let up. He is in his face, and Dequan Townsend and Dusko does not learn. He keeps trying to do the same thing, and he just keeps getting caught. Soriano figured him out. He had his number and tore him to pieces.
Well, honestly, even more so than the Kilburn fight, when Soriano catches him, because Soriano wasn't fighting very intelligently. You know, he was really winging in some haymakers. Dusko looked really good, fighting in a really smart way, landing behind the jab well. Gets caught, but you know, even after he gets caught the first time, there's then a moment not too long after where there's actually a separation so that he can get his mouthpiece put back in. Even that wasn't enough time to clear his head. Soriano ends up dropping him 2 more times before getting the finish. Dusko definitely, you know, he gets caught early. I don't know if you remember back in the day, or maybe it's really only 3 or 4 years ago. My UFC calendar is terrible, but Cowboy Cerrone against Jorge Masvidal, and
Okay,
he gets basically knocked out at the end of the first. Then has 30 seconds to sit down with Greg Jackson in his face, going, "You've been hurt worse than that. You've been hurt worse than that." Stands up again, and I'm like, he's still not there. You know, sometimes it takes, you know, more than a minute, and like an actual minute. And you know, Dusko just did not get that opportunity to let the glaze wash off his eyes. It just.
I agree with you, but I'll say this: he's caught more than once before he looks like he's really wobbled. I felt he should have learned his lesson. I felt, like you say, Soriano started by winging in punches, but then he straightened them out. And Todorovic was making a really amateur boxing mistake that you can't get away with when you're in a boxing situation of 20 by 20 square with 4 right angles. You're not meant to take more than 2 steps backwards. L stepping. You take 1 step back, you then try and shift to the side. There was too many situations where he'd duck away and he'd keep going back in the same direction. And once the punch is carded going straight down the middle, he's on the back foot and doesn't have anywhere to go and gets caught.
When would you say it kind of happened for him? Because before he had his mouthpiece knocked out, I'd say like a good 30 seconds before that, when he got caught up near the fence on the kind of on the other side of the octagon. That for me was when I just saw it in his face, just kind of like a bit of the soul had gone out of him.
It was the second one. He gets caught once and it knocks him off balance, and then he manages to get back up again. And he doesn't learn. He's still trying to do the same thing. And then Soriano completely corrects and starts throwing everything down the middle and constantly catches him on the back foot, leaning back. And I'm pretty sure it's the second one where he looks like he's really wobbled. And then I think the third one is when the mouthpiece comes out. He gets the minute to recover. But like you say, by that point, he's just completely gone. You've got to prepare for when you're hurt. And if what you're doing isn't working and you're getting caught, and the guy's made alterations, and he's, you know, what you're doing is just putting you in a terrible position, not just to get hit, but in a terrible position to receive the punch well. You've got to be able to correct that.
Yeah, you got to hone your defensive fundamentals to the stage that everything's instinctive.
Yeah,
of course. I'm willing to give him a bit more credit for how hard he got hit early on in the fight, but you know, MMA is always, you know, what have you done for me lately? Let's see how he bounces back, because definitely showed a lot of potential. He could be a very good fighter.
Also, listen, there were 2 undefeated guys. Someone was going to lose the fight. It doesn't mean that they're a bad fighter. Both guys are young. They've clearly both got a lot to learn. I thought Soriano looked impressive, but as he say, he didn't start off the way that he needed to start off. He just kind of found a way to correct it. And Todorovic, I think, has got a lot of defensive work to learn. You've got to be so good if you want to play that game with the hands down.
Yeah,
You've got to be so good, and you can't afford, once you're in that situation, your understanding of distance and range, your understanding of movement and the basics and the fundamentals, everything has to be there, because if it isn't, guys will catch you. And listen, you've got to prepare for the unexpected as well. You know, as we're going to see in one of the fights later on the card, you know, even if you think you're doing everything right, a guy can just throw something completely crazy that you're not expecting.
Yeah. And if you want to talk about later on in the card, like for the being able to fight with your hands down and manage distance, in fact, be able to hold a conversation with someone else at the same time, we saw the other extreme of that scale in the main event, which I can't wait to get to that one.
Oh man, I know that we usually do the main event first, but I feel like this is one where we want to build up to it and then just have all the time that we need to praise the necessary adoration and respect where it needs to go. But no, Soriano won. That put you 4-2 up and me 2-4 down on our picks. Todorovic will come back, and I'll be excited when he does come back because I think he's a good fighter. But next on the card, Joaquin Buckley against Alessio De Chirico, a man whose name I wasn't sure how to pronounce last week, a man who'd lost his last 2 fights. His UFC career had not gone particularly...
Was it not his last 3 fights?
I believe it is his last 3 fights. I wasn't sure if all 3 of those were in the UFC.
Oh no, yeah, no, he's been in the UFC for a while, man. He's got like he had 8 or 9 fights coming into this one. He'd beat some okay guys, and he'd lost to some better ones. And for me, that kind of, I kind of started to pigeonhole him in at this position, and I think that's your standard, Alessio. But this was kind of an interesting one because, again, you want to talk about guys measuring distance well. He did a fantastic job of just keeping this fight at kicking range. Orthodox versus a southpaw. When you start playing a kicking game, I think it always favors the southpaw. But in this instance, Joaquin Buckley knows, he's got these heavy hands, so he's just trying to kind of close the distance with flurries, and he does. He touches ADC up a few times. I'm shortening it to ADC now, just because my Italian pronunciation.
I like it. Awful. I like it.
But ADC did a great job backing up. Didn't get caught clean with anything crazy, and it's almost as Joaquin Buckley is trying to adjust to the way the ADCs dictate in the fight, looking to kind of explode into punching range. ADC just clips him with that high kick as he's kind of dipping in for like that next like wild hook. And it kind of made me think of Aljo against Marlon Moraes. I know that ended up being more of a knee just because of how fast Aljo was coming in. But it's just, as you dip down, just that nasty glancing off the top of your dome. What a knockout.
Great knockout. He timed it brilliantly. I think Buckley, a little too excited, a little too aggressive, not thinking about his defensive moves enough. Maybe a little bit too keen to try and make another viral sensation.
Maybe. He did. I did see him start to kind of make these adjustments and start to close that gap quicker. But then, Alessio De Chirico, I gave it a go. Don't hate on me. Alessio De Chirico, he just times it perfectly, sees him coming in and just cracks him, just shin to top of the forehead. What more can you say? It was a great kick. It was a really great performance.
It was. I'll say this about Buckley. I'm not sure if he's a middleweight.
You'd send him down to 170?
He weighs in at like 182, 183 pounds. And he's only 5'10", and he hasn't got a big reach. And I think, imagine him, even just a little bit less powerful.
That's what 182 pounds looks like. That's insane. Okay.
Not a big guy. He's a short guy. So think about that. If he's doing 182 and probably barely even cutting weight, probably nothing in the tank, nothing in the bath, just doing his camp, and that takes him down the few pounds that he needs to go. It's not unthinkable. And it's not so much that he hasn't got the power to handle 185. It's that he's imagine him against Adesanya. Think about when he fought Kevin Holland, that he had moments in that fight, but just the distance he had to close. He got knocked out because Kevin Holland hit him with a beautiful long right hand straight down the middle. but that happens because he's got such a range that he can hit the guy without being hit back. And if you were to take Buckley's athleticism, his power, his speed, his creativeness, and just give him less of that height differential, he's not dealing with guys. He'll deal with some guys that are bigger than him. He'll deal with a few guys that are bigger than him, but it's not going to be the same issues on a consistent basis.
I mean, if he can make 170, that would be kind of scary, exciting. But I don't know. For me, I don't look at him and think he's kind of overly undersized. Middleweight is a diverse division, though. Middleweight's a division where it's not necessarily the biggest guys in the division that have the most success. Whitaker's certainly not on the huge end of the scale. Gastelum, Adesanya, they're definitely some of the lighter guys in the division. Can't really think who else you've got. My point, though, is that sure, if he can make 170, I don't know that he can, but it would be interesting to see. It would be interesting to see.
Who knows? Who knows? And listen, he might just need to do a little bit of work. It might just be a case of shoring up some fundamentals. Not being quite as aggressive, not ducking down so much, factoring kicks into the mix.
He already fights as a southpaw, so that kind of favors like a heavy takedown game. So maybe just learning a really fierce double leg and really drilling some very technical, diverse range of like single legs and how to finish those, and keep running the leg and not give up on it. Being able to mix it up by changing the levels would help. Keep the counter strikers of the middleweight division a little bit more honest when you're being forced to constantly close the distance like that.
Yeah. I don't know. He's had an aggressive. Part of me wonders as well. He's had a very aggressive gym. It's a new gym. It's a gym.
You're a fan of this gym, aren't you? Well, you're a fan of the fighters coming out of the gym.
I'm a fan of the fighters coming out of the gym, but I don't know. New gyms always make me worried and a little nervous. They could be exciting. They could be, a little archaic. They could have some crazy ideas that you don't always know how well these guys are getting prepared in all areas. And it sounds, when you look at the types of fighters that they're producing, it's guys that are very, very aggressive and excellent at going forward and looking to end the fight. I don't know if this is necessarily a gym where I'm seeing guys come in with a rounded game plan. And just to give an example, we've seen Buckley knocked out twice in 4 fights now in the UFC, being aggressive. Works when it works, but gets knocked out when it doesn't work quite cleanly. And Chaos Williams, when he was faced with a slightly different type of fighter in Michel Pereira, when what he does didn't work, there wasn't an idea of thinking about the rounds. I think he was just you could see how frustrated he was that he couldn't just hit the guy, just land and just get it done and just get the win and knock him out. So I've got questions. I've got a lot of questions. They're young guys. I think Jamal Hill looks absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
And I'd certainly say that he looks the most.
You know who he's fighting next?
No.
Just booked it. Paul Craig.
What?
I would need to look up which card it's on, but I'm assuming kind of March time. Yeah, I don't really like that fight for Paul Craig. I mean, on paper it's winnable, but I don't like that fight.
They really don't like. I don't think they like Paul Craig that much. I don't think they like him being ranked.
Yeah.
I think he's. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, getting back to Joaquin Buckley. So sort of your fear might be that working too much on the strengths and the attacking game plan rather than shoring up the weaknesses in their game. So let me play out a bit of an MMA fantasy for you, Matt. Joaquin Buckley, his next fight could very well be James Krause if the stars align. What if they did it at like a catch weight at 175? After the fight, both men have earned each other's respect. Next thing, they're bezies. Next thing, he's training down with James Krause, the James Krause, sorry. And James convinces him to start fighting at 170 and to start fighting like a James Krause trained fighter does. How excited would you be?
I'd be very excited for a lot of different reasons. What I'd say this. My biggest worry with this gym is James Krause has said the reason why he said all the things about Buckley is that Buckley wanted to come into his gym for very hard, aggressive sparring. And that's not what James Krause's gym is about. So my worry is that he's found a gym with some very aggressive guys where they're basically preparing by fighting each other for however many weeks they train for in camp. And my worry in that is that that will be reflected in these one-punch knockouts that we're seeing.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
You see, and just the fact that if you only weigh 182 pounds and you've barely cut any weight, and you're fighting guys who might be walking into the cage at 200, 205, 210 pounds, and your game is about overwhelming them with speed and aggression and power, I don't know how high that upper level that really goes for you. I don't think you're necessarily playing the right stats and the right favors. And if you do that, I think you've got to put weight on.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I mean, he's already kind of proven that, when he comes up against a more technical vet, the Kevin Hollands, the ADCs of the world, he gets caught. He's got plenty of time. He's got a lot to work on, but he's got plenty of time. And when you have that knockout power and that athleticism, you're going to find someone that does want to work with you. I definitely think that hard sparring needs to be minimal.
We got a lesson about that from the main event.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah, this is
we
the
got
thing.
a lesson about that.
You know what? We'll get to it when we get to it, actually. But
I just want to say one more thing, and I want to say this about ADC. I love that post-fight interview.
Oh yeah, no, that was pretty cool.
I loved
pretty
it.
Classy.
Absolutely loved it. I've seen some criticism of it. I've seen some valid criticism of it, but I understood what the point he's trying to make. You just get forgotten about when you're the loser in this sport. No one talks to you. No one really wants to remember you. And I thought it was nice that he tried to remember. I took it as a sign of respect to his opponent.
Yeah, he wasn't saying like when you asked the guy just knocked out. He said, "I think you should interview both fighters. This sport's made by two people. That is all." Yeah, the way he said it as well. Had some poignancy to it. What's the criticism you've read on it?
I was watching Luke Thomas, and he was basically, I think his taking of it was as a dig at the media. That he was saying, oh, so you lost a couple of times and no one spoke to you. So now you decided to get on your high horse and be all high and mighty and have your jab at the media for not wanting to talk to people when they lose. And I kind of felt like he missed the point a little bit. Like he took it as, oh, well, I'm trying to make a point. And I think the point he was just trying to make is that it does suck when you're not spoken to. And I know that there's reasons for it. I know that they say after a knockout in particular, they don't want to talk to the fighters. Sometimes they want to go straight to hospital. And in some case situations, that's true. But Joe Rogan was the guy who started that and has shoved a microphone in 3 or 4 different people's face after they've been knocked out when they're the big names or people that he's friends with. So I really don't take that point with much validity. I think it's a point that they cling to until Daniel Cormier gets knocked out.
Yeah. Well, my take on it when he said it is it's not a dig at the media, it's a dig at the culture. It's a dig at the sports culture. And I think a lot of it is American sports culture as well, which is why they might be too much within that bubble to kind of like see it for what it really is. Because absolutely, when Joe Rogan, interviewed Alistair Overeem after the Miocic loss, it was kind of embarrassing for Overeem. Saying that, Miocic tapped, and not in the way that Chael Sonnen says that everybody he fought tapped, but, genuinely believe in it, and then they make him watch back the replay, and it's not there. And, just don't do the guy like that. Let's see the Jericho is just saying, let's have a lot more respect for all of the opponents, all of the competitors.
Daniel Cormier twice. Cowboy Cerrone when he lost to Conor McGregor. There are exceptions since this precedent's been done when it's their favorite guys. And maybe that's his point as well, that it's all, well, the rules get broken when it's the big name. But for 30 seconds, maybe the guy can give him the option.
Yeah.
Give him the option. Because guess what? He might say something stupid, but that was his choice. At least you gave him the option. Don't put him on the spot or anything like that. Just do, you and I rewatched Dan Hardy versus Carlos Condit before the weekend, and they speak to Dan Hardy. All he says is he makes a little comment and then is just like, I'm sorry, guys, thanks for the support. And he gets a big last cheer. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah, I mean, they will do it from time to time if it's in a fighter's backyard and they're the main event. The Daniel Cormier, John Jones 2 was heartbreaking, but I think it's a beautiful sports moment. I don't know how DC feels about it now, but I'm sure at the time he was probably a bit frustrated that had actually happened at all. But yeah, they should have the option. We the biggest thing they should overhaul, and this is the worst part of the sports culture, is that you make double your money when you win.
Yeah.
And if you don't win, then sometimes after training camp and all the medical bills, you actually run a loss. Or even sometimes when you win, you run a loss. Frankly, everyone should get paid more. And if they are going to do win bonuses and stuff, it shouldn't be as much as it shouldn't be an additional 100% of your wage.
It should be like 20%.
Yeah. You should be getting paid a lot more to do it. You should be able to afford the training that your level, if you're competing at the highest levels of the sport, you should be able to afford the highest levels of training. And that just isn't the case.
Absolutely. Well, we'll get to some good and bad training a little bit later in the show. But I do want to move on because obviously we want to get through and to our main event. But before that, we had a fight that you and I were both looking forward to. Another one that we got wrong, as well as the bookmakers. Ponzinibbio making his return after 2.5 years against the always dangerous leech Li Jingliang. And we talked about this. On paper, Ponzinibbio, the better fighter by far in terms of ability and class. But he'd been out for 2.5 years. I was a bit more nervous than you. You went for a knockout. I went for a decision, thinking he'd still, if he was coming back, he'd be ready. He might have been physically ready, but he wasn't mentally ready. And the Leech was the worst guy to fight because you're trying to get your groove back and you've got somebody who's just constantly moving, constantly doing things with his hands, constantly throwing something unorthodox. And I think it was a terrible fight for him to come back to. I watched it back and I just think it's a big ring rust. I think he was nervous to throw. I think Lee made him feel nervous to throw. And once he didn't have that aggression, he just got caught. And maybe if he'd had a bit more time, he would have started getting settled in. But he made Lee feel confident enough that he felt that he could just start throwing things, and that's Ponzi was just going to back up.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. There's two stories to this. One, ring rust is real, and two, Li Jingliang. That's one of the best performances I've seen him put in. He really came in with a nice technical, busy performance, measured the distance well, kept pumping away, kept slipping. He really kind of frustrated Ponzinibbio to the point that Ponzinibbio wanted to make this a much scrappier fight. And as that first round progresses, he realizes he needs to force this into a fight in a phone box. He needs to upset the Leech's rhythm. And, as he really kind of tries to force the aggression, because he couldn't get the openings naturally, when he really tried to force the fight in the last minute, he gets caught with the right hand, a quick left hook. And, I barely saw that hook coming, just absolutely floored Ponzinibbio.
No, he got caught. And, he's a good fighter. He had a bad performance against Neil Magny. And I think a bit of a narrative of being inconsistent is starting to form with this guy, where he can switch it on the right night, but he can also have some duds as well. But the power is clearly there. We've seen fights of his in the past where he's shown what a dog he is. Remind me, was it the Brazilian guy? I can't remember his name. He knocks him out in like the last 5 seconds of the third round. On the
You're
China
talking about
card.
Eliseu Zaleski dos Santos.
That's the one.
Yeah.
On the same card that Zhang Weili won the belt in China.
Yeah. Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
So
against Andrade.
he's a dangerous guy, and I think ring rust is real. I don't know how much of the not throwing was a mental aspect. I don't know how much of that was what the leech was doing, and I don't know how much of that was maybe a lack of trust of his body.
For me, it was so hard to say because you had Li Jingliang putting in a really solid performance. You looked at Ponzinibbio looking like a guy that's coming off a 2-year layoff with lots of injuries. You know, I remember before this fight thinking about like Dominic Cruz coming back from his knee injuries. I forget who he fought now, but just absolutely crushing him. And me thinking like, do you know what? When you've got that championship mentality, when you're that kind of guy, ring rust doesn't matter. Injuries don't matter. Like when you come back, like I mean, Tony Ferguson, it took a long time for the wheels to fall off there. And a lot of people, including Tony Ferguson, would say the wheels didn't fall off. But I definitely feel like his knees catching up with him. Um, shit, it's a young man's game. Although with MMA, you can go a lot longer than some other sports. But honestly, if you get enough technical training and enough experience young, it really is a young man's game. Guys tend to peak around like their early 30s, and Ponzinibbio is like past that window. Just it's really tough. I would love to see him be able to kind of bounce back from this. I can't say like the jury's out on him or anything because Li Jingliang put in a really great performance. I can't take anything away from Ponzinibbio. Didn't look like himself, and which was the bigger factor? I don't know.
I'll tell you what is worrying for Ponzinibbio is that I don't know what do you gain from this fight? Okay, maybe you got ring rust. I don't think any rust came off from this. You haven't had
It's
any
a statement though. He is back. They told him he couldn't fight again. He can. He's back.
That's true. That's true. But
It's a
in
landmark.
terms, I just feel that okay, you get past that 100%. But in terms of the ring rust issues, in terms of all of that, you didn't get the minutes in the cage. You didn't get the rounds in the cage, and that is a worry. A worry. And I don't know. I don't know how long it's going to take him to get back to the level that he was at. I don't know if he can get back to the level that he was at. And at the age that he's at, I don't know how much time he's got. It could be one of those sad stories of one of the what ifs of MMA.
Well, here's the other thing. He's got these other options. He does the broadcast work. He's a pundit on UFC Espanol, on the Zone. He's got other ways of making money. And from what I understand of it, Hente Boa, he earned that name. He's a good guy. People like him. People reach out for him, look out for him. If you're that kind of person, you work as hard as he does. You know what he's done in the game, and you know what he's got to offer as a pundit. I don't think it's going to be hard for him to move into probably a more lucrative career role now. But he's a fighter for a reason.
He's still got time. He can pull it back, but it's a lot of pressure. And I feel like he's just starting the next fight camp back at square one. Maybe not in terms of being able to know that he can get there, but in terms of getting past the ring rust, all of those things. Who knows? Who knows? But as for Li Jingliang, I'll tell you who I'd like to see him fight next. Bit of an odd one. Loser of Magny versus Chiesa.
I mean, the timing works out well.
Yeah. Magny was his worst performance. Worst performance. He just didn't show. Li Jingliang, he just didn't show up. I think he'd love to get that back. I think if Chiesa ends up losing, I think that's a good fight for Chiesa. Chiesa's kind of been moving up the division. It might not be too bad for him to get a fight where he has to kind of defend his spot a little bit. I think it could be an interesting one. But whoever he fights, it's good. I'm excited to see what happens for the Leech next.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Magny wasn't his worst performance. I can't remember who it was against. It's the one where he was raking the eyes.
You were talking about this eye raking things. Yeah. I don't know this kind of reputation that he's got, but
yeah, he was a bit of a fouler back in the day. Now he's known for his performances, which is a good thing. But
catch brand new episodes of the MMA Splits weekly. moving on to the co-main event. In many ways, the fight that I think you were almost more excited for, maybe not more excited, but as excited for as the
No,
main event.
yeah, I was more excited for this one.
The two legends, the immortal Matt Brown versus the natural born killer, Carlos Condit.
Yeah, well, it felt personal for me. You know, these are two of my favorite fighters. So, you know, I was definitely really excited for this one. And I picked Matt Brown, but I'm not disappointed that Carlos Condit won.
I picked
Um,
Carlos Condit. I'm happy with that. It was the first correct pick I'd made in 6 fights. I got 6 straight wrong in a row. 3 split decisions and then 3 underdog first round knockouts. What can I say? What can I say?
yeah,
But Carlos Condit, you performed brilliantly. What can I say? You were excellent in ways that I did not
yeah.
expect him to be excellent. His grappling looked fantastic, very creative
The
switches,
reversal in the first round was
reversals,
really nice.
great control when he was on top position in the second round, lots of volume with the striking on the feet. But Matt Brown, great game plan coming into this, made it dirty, looked to press him against the fence, try and get him to the ground, beat him up. But in the end, I just felt that you could really see Matt Brown's age, whereas I felt Condit was looking like his old self a little bit.
Yeah, he rolled back the years on this one for sure. He was just picking apart Matt Brown. And when he was on his back as well, he was the one doing all the damage. Landing good elbows, punches, just, you know, Matt Brown didn't even want to kind of try and pass his guard at that point.
He ended up getting unanimous decisions across all 30-27, Carlos Condit. And even though Matt Brown was on top for most of the first round, it does look like the judges felt exactly as you said, that even with Condit on the bottom, he was the one landing strikes and being aggressive.
Yeah, I mean, look, honestly, I gave Matt Brown the first, but it was close.
All 3 rounds were
I
close in all
all 3
fairness.
rounds were close, but you know, I knew Matt Brown had lost the fight at the end of the third. Matt Brown's come out and said that he's, you know, really angry at the scoring. Yeah,
I get that he feels that it should have been a 29-28.
yeah. Look, a
That's what he feels.
30-27 UD just on paper just looks like it wasn't a close fight, and it was. I think Carlos Condit clearly won. I think the first round was the closest. I think the second and the third were close rounds that, you know, I clearly gave to Carlos Condit. I didn't expect any of the judges to get those 2 wrong. I didn't have a problem with the decision.
No.
I totally understand why Matt Brown has a problem with the decision. But you know, I think that's probably going to be Matt Brown's last fight now.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I would like him to retire because in his pre-fight interview, when they're doing the media tour, the media circus, he said that he's feeling a lot of the symptoms that Spencer Fisher is talking about. And you hear stories, you see the wars that he's been in, you see his age, you see all of these factors. I don't know if there's any reason for him to stay. I don't think he's going to prove anything that he hasn't already proven. He's not going to reach a level that he hasn't already reached. He's only going to be lower than that level. And I don't think that, like, I thought he had a good game plan. And I felt that his age really started to show about halfway through round 2.
For sure.
There was no energy. There was no ability to take advantage of situations he was creating. And it's just time. 40 years old in the welterweight division is old. It's old at any point, any weight in the sport, but particularly in welterweight. And there's nothing but killers coming through. If there's maybe a couple of these classic fights that you could put together that would still be worthwhile, I'd be up for watching it. I think what's nice about this is that neither guy really got too damaged. We kind of just got to have this fun kind of legends fight that was entertaining and good quality, but without any horrible repercussions. But remember, Matt Brown's previous fight was getting brutally knocked out by Baeza.
Yeah, Caramel Thunder just ran through him. But look, Matt Brown's not going to get a better fight to go out on. They're not going to. There are no other seasoned vets that we haven't seen him fight. You know, he's already fought Diego Sanchez. You know, even something like Pettis. Pettis is gone. just I don't think they're going to be able to. If I'm Matt Brown, I'm pissed off right now. I'm going to take some time to cool off anyway. I've got a lot of coaching to do. I've got my businesses I need to run, and I think it's just going to be one of those. He's just going to throw himself into coaching. Um, I'm a huge Matt Brown fan, so it feels weird saying this, but I kind of hope he doesn't fight again. I don't think that it's the fact that he hasn't got any more fights in him. It's just you've got nothing left to prove. So why squeeze out? It's just blood from a rock at this point. Why try and get more out of it? Why put yourself through more damage?
Agreed.
You're not going to get any closer to a title shot than you did when you fought Robbie Lawler. You just haven't got enough time, unfortunately.
I'd say this as well. Your style is not conducive for longevity.
Yeah.
Carlos Condit, him I'd like to see. I think he can still have some great fights. I don't think he's going anywhere in the UFC. I think he's still got. I think he's younger, faster. I think we talked about this in the last show. I just felt he was technically at a whole different level to Matt Brown. And I think that's going to serve him well. And I think he can kind of do what Pettis has been doing for the last few fights of his contract, where he's got these fun fights. He's not necessarily worried about a title, but he can still compete against some really excellent guys.
Yeah, and truth be told, with the right run of fights, there's no reason he couldn't pull off a bit of a Bisping. But I'd really like to see if Chiesa loses on Wednesday, and I think he would.
He's already fought Condit, though.
Yeah, that's why I want to see the rematch. I feel like he fought Condit in the middle of Condit's slump. Damian Maia had kind of broken Condit a little bit in my mind, and now Condit is getting back to his old self. I think if Chiesa loses that fight, they both fought around the same time. If they both wanted a second fight in the summer, it could line up very well. And frankly, if Chiesa loses that fight, then he'll see the Condit fight as a very winnable fight. He's the younger guy. He dominated the first fight. Why wouldn't he take it? For Condit, it'd be a great opportunity to get that fight back. And I think for the fans, it'd be a good fight.
Okay, interesting. Well, one thing we know is Condit's not going anywhere. His contract is ended currently, his current contract with the UFC, but Dana has already said he loves Carlos Condit. So I don't think he's going anywhere. And good for him. We will see what he gets matched up against in the future.
Well, I'll tell you, do you hear Dan Hardy on the broadcast saying that he'd like to see him fight either Vicente Luque or James Krause?
James Krause would be interesting. I think Vicente Luque is a real big jump. I know he's Carlos Condit. From what he's just beaten and the 2 fights he's just won, I think you need to view that as its own win streak that you need to build up. Suddenly jumping him to number 8 in the division, I think it's a huge leap with devastating consequences. I think James Krause would be an interesting one because I think James Krause is an amazing fighter. The consequences aren't the same as fighting Vicente Luque.
Yeah, Vicente Luque is a dangerous man.
Dangerous man.
I think stylistically,
not afraid to get into a gunfight.
Yeah, potentially it could be a good one for Condit because Luque is going to keep coming forwards. I think for Condit right now in his career, being the savvier, more experienced, more technical guy, seeing what he did to Matt Brown, constantly trying to push forward. If he does want to move on up, that'd be a great fight. That'd be a great fight for both guys. But I would like to see the Chiesa rematch, assuming that Magny does the business on Wednesday.
Well, we will get to our predictions later on that fight later in the show. But we've been putting it off long enough. It is the main event time. Max Holloway versus Calvin Kattar. My cousin Tom predicted Kattar to win. Since then, he has been banned from this podcast for life. He is no longer considered a friend of Josh. I don't even think he's considered a friend of Elliot based on the text that he sent when I told him. And Tom spent 25 minutes last Saturday night learning exactly why he was wrong. Max Holloway showed up like a man possessed, determined to prove that he should have been given the belt after that second Volkanovski fight. And 2, he is the number 1 contender, and he is miles ahead of everyone else in this division whose last name is not Volkanovski or Ortega. And even then, he might be ahead of those guys based on what we saw. It's without a doubt the best performance of his career. One of the questions I want to ask you, and hopefully Elliot can join us and we can ask him, is that the single best performance in UFC history that lasted 25 minutes?
445 significant strikes landed at almost 60%. That's insane.
The most significant strikes thrown, the most strikes thrown, the most strikes and significant strikes landed, the most head strikes landed, the most body strikes landed. This was insane. This was insane. This was Max round 1, the way Max usually is in round 5. And he still went up a gear every single round. I have rewatched that fight 3 times. I've rewatched the last 2 minutes of the 5th round about 40 times because I'm still in shock as to what was going on. He didn't just beat Calvin Kattar. He outboxed him. And we on this very show last week had said, Max might be the better all-round fighter, but Calvin Kattar, we took it for granted, is the better boxer. Nope. Max proved you wrong.
Didn't say necessarily he was the bad boxer, but we did say Poirier, who shows some sharper hands at lightweight, but that's carrying the damage, a bit more weight at 55. He outboxed Holloway when they fought, and he had come out and said that Kattar had great hands, really good hands. So, we were very interested to see how that would pan out. It didn't pan out at all. Kattar landed some shots. Kattar was tough as hell. Kattar stuck in this fight. I don't think his corner should have let it go on that long. I think it's ridiculous that it went the distance. But and I don't think Kattar's going to feel any better for it when he gets towards the end of his career and he's starting to feel all of that damage. God damn. Holloway tore him apart. And usually
almost finished in the second, almost finished in the third, almost finished in the fourth. 5th round was a symphony. It was a symphony. You're right. Calvin Kattar's, I'll say this in terms of the fight being stopped. I do not blame Herb Dean for not stopping that fight. Every single time you could see he was thinking about it, Calvin Kattar did enough to force him to allow the fight to continue. That is 100% on the cornerman, because Calvin Kattar's not going to stop that fight.
Oh, I agree totally.
Damn chance in hell.
Herb Dean would have stepped in, but Kattar never gave up to the point, never dropped his card enough, never stopped moving to the point that Herb Dean could be like, well, I've told you to keep moving, I've told you to guard yourself, defend yourself. He is. His corner really should have thrown that in. I wouldn't say like the 5th round was necessarily tough to watch. I like that.
I honestly
don't
felt
like showboating, but
the showboating actually I felt was an act of mercy for that guy.
Same. I think he just had to take his foot off the pedal, make a statement in a different way, and being able to slip, avoid 5 straight punches
whilst not looking
at
them.
DC.
Whilst looking at DC.
Yeah. That was crazy.
And landing a no-look right hand that lands perfectly just before you do it. Then the freshman came to play. Oh, the freshman came to play. And Calvin Kattar, he's tough as old boots. But I think he realized after round 2, he's got nothing on Max. And I think you could see, without having a wrestling threat, without having something else that you can bring that disrupts the rhythm or adds an extra element, he was just cannon fodder. I've never seen Max look that quick.
Max could not be beat on the feet that day. He could not be beat.
Yes, he got hit by a few strikes, but you could say they were clean, but he was never in trouble. He was never hurt in that fight.
Never been knocked down.
And his style, he gets hit, but he's so good at kind of moving back with it or slightly glancing it or it's just the odd strike. You never see him really get hit by 2 or 3 in quick succession.
Yeah, he's not tense. He doesn't take his eyes off his opponent. He doesn't get caught with stupid shit. He's very fluid, and goddamn, can he fight long?
He
Some
can
of the
fight
the, the
long. He can
hooks
fight
he
short.
lands. Just yeah, I think if you look at 25-minute performances, this is the greatest performance bar none. This is questionably one of the greatest performances ever. I can think of performances that are questionably as good, but this is in the conversation.
I've highlighted a few that I think you can put up there on the same level.
Okay,
Just a
let's
few.
have the list.
Prince Nassim Hamed, when he fought in Sheffield against Berea.
So we're going all sports here.
We're going also. That's the level we've got to go to. This was okay. Muhammad Ali roper doping George Foreman. George Foreman roper doping Michael Moorer. That's the level I'm going to. I'm talking full showmanship, gravitas. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen a 5-round fight that one-sided. I don't think I've ever seen a 5-round fight that has 3 10-8 score. I've never seen a fight with 3 10-8 scorecards.
Yeah, so 2 judges gave 2 10-8s, and the third judge gave 3 10-8s. Just and I thought the fifth was a 10-8.
Yeah, I thought the fourth was a 10-8. I thought the second was a 10-8. An argument could be made.
They all gave the second and the fourth. It's the fifth round that only the one judge gave a 10-8 to. But for me, I think if you can fight as effectively while talking to the commentary team, that's a 10-8. If that's the way the fight's going, that's a 10-8.
Yeah. And to put things in perspective, we saw 4 fights earlier how it works out when you're not good enough to slip punches, even focusing with your hands down. The level Max has to be at the competition that he was fighting, to have that presence of mind, that understanding of space and distance, that dominance over the situation. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. And let anyone in the comments section try and tell us now that he is not the champion.
Well, here's the thing, right? I don't want to end up having another episode where we're apologizing to people because you want to make amends with Volkanovski, but I think Volkanovski's really good, and I think Ortega's going to beat him. Ortega looked so much improved against the Korean Zombie from the last time he fought Max. There's like, you get excited in your mind. You're like, what would it be like to see Ortega fight Holloway again? Jesus Christ! After that performance, I don't think anyone wants to fight Holloway.
No.
Like
he was. I'll tell you what. I know they won't let him. And in his post-fight press conference, he said he's going to stick around, and if anything happens to McGregor or Holloway, he wants to step in. That's obviously not going to happen. He's taken too much damage, medical suspensions, all of that jazz. That Holloway, I can't tell you he doesn't beat Poirier in the third fight. I can't tell you he doesn't beat McGregor in a third fight. I don't care if it's at lightweight. I don't care if it sounds ridiculous. That was a man who on that night, you'd have to be something special to beat him. Or a foot taller and 40 pounds heavier. That's what it would take. And yeah, I love Max, man. There's no one else that can deliver those kind of moments like him, that has that type of personality. And he just seems like he seems more in his element now than he did when he was champion.
Oh, absolutely. And we were talking about this off air, but this is the second training camp for him now with no hard sparring. I don't know if it's no sparring or just no hard sparring. I got to believe it's just no hard sparring. But it's something we've talked about a lot. Having gym wars, leaving all of your best fights in the gym, taking all the miles off that way, just isn't smart. And with the news this week with Spencer Fisher and his problems with CTE, the tau proteins going into his actual spinal cords, Matt Brown talking about having similar symptoms, just the sport definitely needs to continue moving in the right direction. And we talked a bit about how much sparring we really feel needs to be done. I think it's going to be different for fighter to fighter, what stage they are at in their career. But you really want to limit the hard sparring as much as possible. And the concern's always been that if you're going to do that, you're going to lose all your sharpness. You're not going to be able to fight at the same level. Max Holloway just disproved that in the biggest way imaginable.
Yeah. The level he's at, I think when you've already got those skills acquired, I don't think it's as hard to polish them up and add a couple of new technique related things. He already knows how to take a punch. His conditioning is probably excellent. And I'm sure that there's some physical conditioning things you can do aside from sparring to get you ready for the, for the punishment side of things in the octagon. I still think young fighters need to spar, and there's always going to be situations where you've got to simulate to some level a fight situation. But I think what we're clearly seeing from the Spencer Fisher situation, from what Matt Brown's been talking about with his gym wars, from what we've seen from Shooter Box and the Miletich Fighting Academy, we've seen the wrong way to do this for way too long in the early days of the sport. And I think the right way to do this is something along these lines of what we're seeing from Max Holloway's camp, what we're seeing from progressions in ATT, what we're seeing from the way that James Krause prepares his fighters. And I think that has to be the direction that we go in more and more.
Yeah, John Kavanagh too, big fan of light sparring. Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot more. And another thing in the news, because the problem with fighting in MMA is because of the organization system. You know, you are a contractor. There's no security for you when things go wrong. And something that was in the news the last couple of weeks, we haven't really touched on it yet, is Owen Rivera. Has been arrested for attacking two of his sisters, stabbing two of his sisters, and his family have actually come out and said, they just want him to get the help that he needs. He's been talking about hearing voices. I don't want to say that this is CTE related, but the connection here is that stuff happens to you in your career, and this sport is completely unforgiving. There's no support there. Even when MVP knocked out Cyborg, Cyborg had to do a GoFundMe to pay for his medical bills. I think there needs to be an overhaul in the pay system, and I think there needs to be some kind of similar to other sports where they'll have like a players' association, that sort of arranges sort of payments for players once they're out of the game. Different kind of support networks, segueing them into different career paths, whatever. But just sort of some assistance when the shit does hit the fan. It's really tragic what's happened with Erwin Rivera.
And Spencer Fisher. And
Yeah,
I think when you
and
look
countless others.
Listen, we had this with the NFL when we got 20, 25 years past all of those legends from the 70s with the Steelers and their big run. And what became very obvious is that a point had been reached where the athletic ability and the physicality and the punishment being taken had superseded the advancements in the protective equipment and the understanding of the long-term ramifications and of the methods in which people trained. And it was no surprise that 20, 25 years later, you got a whole group of players in close proximity to each other in their playing career, all starting from a point onwards to have these kind of issues. There were deaths, there were suicides. Obviously, the movie Concussion covered this very inaccurately, but the general points sort of did ring true. And it was about the doctor who discovered the condition CTE. This is something to be concerned about. The NFL has made some improvements on their side. There's a better understanding. Training is conducted a lot better. Certain fouls and the aggressiveness and the way that you can hit people has been altered in the rules of the sport. And I think players have their eyes open a little bit more as to what the risks are. You saw Andrew Luck retire at the age of 29 2 years ago, based very much on his fear over the injuries and the long-term damage if he continued playing. And he was arguably one of the greatest quarterbacks of his generation. So we've got to get to the point where there's better understanding in the UFC and MMA in general. I still feel that a lot of this damage is due to the training. And I think that I'm hoping that we've already started making some of the changes that will mean that there won't be too many more Spencer Fishers. What worries me is that those training methods sometimes still exist to this day, and certainly were very prevalent for a long time after Spencer Fisher was a fighter. And it worries me how many more stories like this we're going to start hearing, because we all know that there are guys, favorite fighters of ours, legends of the sport, where you see them now and you know something isn't right. You read stories in the paper, you hear rumors about their behavior, and it's concerning. And I don't think that I think we're going to get some other names that, change our opinion on this sport and on this side. And I can't lie to you, it obviously makes me feel, as a fan and as somebody that on a very low level engages in some level of boxing myself, it's not a nice thing to think about. But I think it's something that we have to start thinking about. I think the sport needs to focus on it. And I think a really good place to start, if you accept that a fight is a fight and there's dangers that come with it and there's things that are unavoidable, you've got to start in the preparation.
Yeah.
You can have 3 fights a year or you can have 80 fights a year, depending on how you look at it. And one of those is going to be far worse for your long-term health than the other.
Absolutely. I'm just getting attacked by a dog now.
Oh, you're fine. But it's an awkward one. It's a very awkward one. And I don't know what the answer is. And same with the NFL. There is also guys from the same eras that don't have any of these problems. So it very much seems to be different case to case. And that complicates the situation greatly.
Yeah. I mean, truthfully, it's going to permeate through every sport. Like heading in football, I think will be restricted to sort of over like a certain age group. Maybe even reserved just for the professional game, maybe taken out entirely. I hope not. But the safer we can make things, and also the more of an educated choice people are able to make, the more information you have around it. Because I feel like the first crop of MMA fighters, really up until not that long ago, weren't truly as informed as they may have felt they were. You have guys like Carlos Condit, who's been getting neurological checkups, just as a matter of doing business, just as a course of doing it the right way. Kind of a belt and braces kind of guy.
Very selective over his sparring partners as well.
Yeah, and moves
Has
away
to be
from
guys you trust. Very strict rules, and you can see it. You can see it in his face. You can see it in his speech and his mannerisms. He's there, and that's a guy who's been in wars, but maybe he hasn't had as many of those wars in between those wars in the gym.
Yeah, that's a large part of it. I wouldn't say it's key. It is a large part though. Is there much more news to cover? Do you want to go to Wednesday's picks?
Well, we'll go to Wednesday's picks. A couple of things I just want to touch on very quickly. Dana White obviously said that we were going to have some big news about Khabib on the start of the show. He said it was going to be announced during the show, and then he announced that Khabib said maybe, which is absolutely no news at all. It's interesting
if they impress.
What,
if they
and
impress.
And here's the question: what's impressed?
Fancy.
What makes him impressed? Because I'll tell you who I think would be the only fight I'd like to see Khabib come back for, if it's not GSP, which apparently has been 100% ruled out. Doesn't mean much coming from Dana. I'm just reporting what's been said. He said that that's not going to happen. I think Charles Oliveira is the only fight that's worth seeing. It's the one thing we have not seen from Khabib is him have to go up against a well-rounded fighter with that level of ability in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, probably the best jiu-jitsu guy's gone up against would be RDA, I would have thought. And he fought RDA during RDA's kind of slump,
Good jiu-jitsu as well, but he's not Charles Oliveira. No. He's not a high-level, true black belt, somebody who's got a lifetime experience in that particular discipline, who's also as well-rounded as Charles Oliveira is now. I think it's the one question that I would like to see answered, because Tony Ferguson wouldn't have been that guy, not to the level that Charles Oliveira is. But in many ways, by us not getting the Tony fight, it's the one thing we didn't get to see. We got to see him fight a striker and wrestler with very poor submission defense once it got to the ground, which I don't know if it answered that question for me.
No. Sorry, I just started looking over my picks. I got distracted.
No, you're fine. So we'll see what happens there. I don't see anything. Put it this way: it's not like it's not like Dan Hooker is going to knock out Michael Chandler impressively, and then Khabib goes, "That's the guy right there, Dan Hooker." No, Dustin Poirier would flip the fuck out.
Yeah, look, my take on it is that if Conor McGregor did something akin to what Holloway just did, maybe he would give him the rematch. But I think really what he's talking about is seeing Poirier just come out and absolutely dominate.
He likes Poirier. He's talked about he'd only fight before he retired. I remember him saying that the only person he'd take seriously as a contender is somebody that was able to fight and beat Poirier.
Yeah, Poirier, he didn't really. There was a moment in that fight where I thought he might get that guillotine. Poirier has got a submission game, certainly not a Charles Oliveira level game, but I wouldn't hate seeing that rematch. And why not for both guys? I don't think he's really interested in fighting McGregor. For the reason that McGregor pisses him off. McGregor kind of doesn't really offer him anything in ways of in terms of being a challenge, and it would feel too much like giving McGregor what he wants when McGregor doesn't deserve it. So I don't see that fight ever happening again, that rematch. But the Poirier one, maybe. I think ultimately, I think he's just trying to be honest. If he does come out of retirement, I don't see it being for the next one. I think he will relinquish the belt. Hopefully, the next title fight will be Charles Oliveira against the winner of next Saturday's fight. And the lightweight division will keep ticking on. And if anyone does do something really impressive in the next couple of years, maybe Khabib comes back at that point. But unless Poirier really puts on something special, and maybe the slim chance that McGregor does something really special, yeah, I don't think he's coming back anytime soon.
I agree, and I can't. We've spoken about this before. I want to see the division move on. I want to see belts defended. I want to see two title fights in a year in the lightweight division. Is that too much to ask for?
Hey, hopefully this. Sorry, I have to keep muting when I cough.
We'll see. We'll see what happens. I would like to see Charles Oliveira versus the winner of Dustin Poirier McGregor.
Yeah,
and I'd like to see that be for the belt. And then you know what? If Khabib wants to, he can always come back.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
He's young.
He's young. He could come back. He'd be the automatic title challenger. And then you've got that allure of saying, well, you're the two-time champ. Never lost your belt in the ring. Came back and reclaimed it. Let the new guy emerge and then came back to take his crown. I think there's a storyline there. And I think it's one that buys time and lets other guys get their chance to have the opportunity.
Yeah, clear the division out. Let it refill. Clear that fucker out again. I like it.
Exactly, because then it's undisputed. It's like, okay, I let whoever would be the new king become the new king, and then I went and beat him.
Oh yeah, no, that'd be. I think that's the way it's going to play out.
We will see.
Hey, talking about Nurmagomedovs though, we got brother cousin.
We have
on Wednesday.
And we will get to that very quickly. Just want to touch up on two things. UFC 260 has got its main and co-main event. Co-main is sorted. We're going to have the Alex Volkanovski defending the sorry excuse piece of jewelry that he still hangs around his waist to make himself feel like a man against Brian Ortega. And that will be co-maining Stipe Miocic versus Francis Ngannou. Duh.
I get goosebumps when I think about it. That first fight for me.
And just like Predator 2 might be as enjoyable.
You were going to say better, and then you realized the first movie was better, right?
Well, the first movie's better, but I feel that, Danny Glover does not get enough love in that movie. And it's actually pretty good.
Danny Glover doesn't get enough love, period.
And the key point is that the city might be different. The circumstances might have changed. We might be further in the future. But guess what? The Predator, sorry, not the Terminator, the Predator still fucking dies. So come on, Stipe. 260s looking great. 259 is looking good with Jan Aljo and Megan Anderson versus Nunes. And 258, we've got Gilbert Burns versus Usman. So the start of the year, getting really exciting.
Yeah, it's going to be good.
I'm looking forward to it. That's everything with the news so far, unless another, former UFC star from 20 years ago stabs his girlfriend. We'll try and keep up on that. I hope not. Don't do that, guys. Please don't.
I think you'll edit that out.
I'm going to edit that out. That was a bad joke, and it's tempting fate.
Moving on to this week's picks, or I can't really say this week.
The Wednesday card: Neil Magny versus Chiesa. I did not give this card a lot of love. In fact, I made a joke on last week's show that we've got 3 cards coming up in a week, and 2 of them don't feel patched together. Look, I was a little harsh. I've done some research on this.
Well, you were very harsh.
I think there's some really good fights. I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of these guys. First fight on the card.
I've got some favorites fighting on this card, man. So
Mason Jones is on this card.
Yeah. I think making his lightweight debut as well. So the former Cage Warriors welterweight champion coming in, fighting Mike Davis, who is a lightweight, but his last 2 training camps, I don't know how far in they got before the fights got cancelled, but he's been scheduled against Giga Chikadze twice at featherweight.
Interesting.
So I don't know where Mike's weight's going to be at for this one.
Well, we will get to that. We will get to that. But first and foremost, I just wanted to go through the card chronologically. We have got Victoria Leonardo kicking off the prelims, coming in with an 8-3 record against Manon Fiorot, coming in 5-1. She is on a 5-fight winning streak, coming from UAE Warriors. Leonardo coming across from Invicta and the Contender Series. Leonardo, though, had lost her last couple of fights before she made the jump across from Invicta to Contender, both making their UFC debut. I am going with Fiorot on this. 5-1. She's on a bit of a roll. Been fighting slightly, good level at UAE. And I don't know. I haven't seen Victoria Leonardo fight, but just based on the records, I'm going with Fiorot. I think she's looking a bit more red hot.
Okay, I'm actually going with Leonardo on this one. One of those losses was one of those one-night tournaments for one of the Phoenix series that Invicta do. So the random Maverick one, I think it technically goes down as an exhibition bout, but it was a loss. But I think it's 2 rounds, so for me, it carries an exclamation mark. I think Invicta's the kind of the better kind of farming organization, and I don't know enough about either of these girls. I'm leaning towards Victoria Leonardo on this one. I'm picking by decision.
I'm going by decision as well. Next up after that, we've got brother cousin Umar Nurmagomedov coming in 12-0 against Sergey Morozov. Khabib's cousin is not the same fighter as Khabib. Very different style, aggressive on the feet. This should be a really good fight. They've actually already meant to have fought. I think they've tried to organize this once or twice. I think it should have been on the previous run at Fight Island. It's been pushed back, and we are getting this fight now.
Originally scheduled last October. Umar Nurmagomedov, definitely a bit more fluid on the feet than Khabib. Boy's still got a submission game. He trained under Abdul Manap and Javier, of course, at AKA. But he doesn't necessarily go with Father Plan. Kind of an exciting fighter. I think Nurmagomedov's going to get a sub in this one. I'm picking Umar.
I'm going Umar by finish. I'm not going to specify whether it's a KO or a submission, but I think
you might as well, because if he subs him and we both pick that one and that was the tiebreaker, I'm going to go, Matt, I win that one because I said sub. What are you going to do?
I'll go KO. Fine. Umar by KO. Not that I don't think Sergey Morozov is a bad fighter. He's coming across from M1. But listen, this is, of all the other Khabibs, this is the one that they're the most excited about. I think it's got the most amount of potential aside from the man himself. So I'm excited to see what he can do inside of the UFC. So we're
Cool.
both picking the Umar Khabib, but we're both picking brother cousin, but you by sub, me by KO. That takes us on to Mike Davis versus Mason Jones, the Welsh Dragon, coming across, as we've already said, previous welterweight champ in Cage Warriors, making his lightweight debut. Davis had beaten Tom Gifford in his previous fight, but had also lost to Gilbert Burns in his UFC debut. So no disrespect to losing to Gilbert Burns. I'll ask you this. Was the Gifford fight at featherweight in that case? Because obviously the Burns fight was at lightweight.
I think the Chikadze fight was going to be his featherweight debut.
Got it.
I might be wrong on that.
But he seems to at least be staying at lightweight for this fight.
Yeah, and that was scheduled twice, and I can't remember the details behind it. I haven't looked into it enough, to be honest. But I would have thought he's probably been looking at 145 for a while, and then they offer him another fight at 55.
This was the wrong fight to take. Mason Jones is undefeated. He's coming in with a 10-0 record. I've actually watched like 2 or 3 of his fights on Cage Warriors.
He's good.
He's really good. I like everything about him. He's aggressive. He handles himself very well in the media. I can't look past him for this fight. I don't know if he'll get the finish. I'm going to go to Mason Jones decision. Same.
And I think Mike Davis is good. But I've gone Mason Jones decision for this one. I think he's probably got a little bit too much for Mike Davis to handle. I think Mike Davis is going to underestimate him being a British fighter coming in. And I think Mason Jones is just naturally going to be a fair bit bigger.
I agree. Decision win for him. Good start in the UFC. We need a few more English guys coming through. British guys, I should say, sorry. Coming through and doing well. So excited to see what
we've got a couple more on this card.
We do. We've got Tom Breeze on this card coming up later. But before that, we've got Not Figgy versus Not Rivera. What do I mean by this? It is not Davidson Figueiredo versus Jimmy Rivera, which would have been a great fight, by the way. It is not Jorge Rivera. Is it Jorge Rivera?
No. Wait, I didn't know you were Jerome.
Jerome Rivera. It is Jerome Rivera against.
So that's Jimmy Rivera's brother. I missed that one.
Well, I don't know if he's his brother, but I know that.
Yeah. We got Little Figgy.
Little Figgy is his brother. His younger brother is older brother.
Little Nog. We got Big Figgy, Little Figgy now.
I don't know if Jerome Rivera is Jimmy's brother. Maybe
when you said that, I was blown away. I thought, wow, that's pretty cool.
Okay,
that makes a lot more sense now. That's why when you were trying to guess at Jorge's and stuff, I'm like, I don't know whose brother he is, Matt. This is all news to me. Jerome Rivera against Little Figgy. I'm picking Little Figgy. I don't know enough about either guy. I'm being a snob. I'm going off name value.
I'm going Little Figgy on this one. I'm going Little Figgy by finish. I'm going to say submission, and I'm doing that on the basis that I have seen Jerome Rivera fight. He lost to Tyson Nam. I don't think Tyson Nam's bad, but I don't think he's elite. And I've got to think if you're training with Davison and the champ to prepare for this fight, that's got to count for something.
Yeah.
So are you going by decision or by
KO? KO.
You're going KO.
I'm going off the name value. I had to go KO.
Yeah, I'm going a little off name value, if I'm honest. It's the prelims. What can I say? I don't watch a lot of Brazilian local regional.
Look, right now, there's been a large influx of talent that many of us haven't heard of. Part of that because of the recruitment like we were talking about earlier. Part of that just because of 2020 being a nuts year. Okay, it's exciting because you get to learn about a lot of new fighters. But when you got your fledgling podcast coming out and you're on episode 8 or 9 or 10 or however far we are now, yeah, okay, it's a bit embarrassing. We don't know all of them. We haven't seen all of them. We're going to.
That's what matters. And we're going to see them this Wednesday, and I can't wait.
5.
So next up, we have got Dalcha Lungiambula coming in 10-2 versus Marcus Perez at 12-4. Marcus Perez, the man who loves to dress up as the Joker at the weigh-ins, although in his last couple of performances, clearly having far more fun at the weigh-ins and success than he's having in the actual octagon or the fight.
Yeah, and this is going to be Doucher's first fight down at 185 in the UFC. I'm going Lungiambula on this one. Originally I thought this fight was scheduled at 205, so I was picking it as a knockout. I couldn't understand why Perez was moving up, but no, this is actually going to be a 185 middleweight fight. I'm going to say Doucher with the decision.
Interesting. It's a Doucher, another one of these fighters that really, affected by the 2020 situation. First fight since 2019. He started off really well, getting a win over Daquan Townsend, who was a guy that we both kind of race and respect when he was in the UFC. But he then lost to Ankalaev. And obviously, everything we've seen from Ankalaev since, absolutely no disrespect in that.
No.
He's had a lot of time to hone his craft. He's a young guy. He's moving down in weight. Marcus Perez is dangerous, but the issue I have with Marcus Perez is I think he's a little bit style over substance.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
If you look at his last fight against Duplessis, he literally got knocked out because he was trying to throw a spinning downward back elbow. Basically ended up twisting and throwing himself into an uppercut that knocked him out. And I feel that that's kind of a good summation of his career to a certain extent. He's, up to a certain point, I think he was 8-0 coming into the 9-0 coming into the UFC. And okay, 12-4 record, it's certainly not bad. But if you look at the success and the failures he's had and losing his last two fights, I don't know if he's really at that high level, but I think he's really entertaining. I think we'll learn a lot more about Doucher than we're going to learn about Marcus Perez in this fight. I'm also going Doucher. I'm going to go knockout. I think he's going to be too powerful coming down from light heavyweight.
Fair enough. All right, I'm quite excited for the next one. Tibetan Eagles, Sumu Daji.
This guy looked ridiculous beating Malcolm Gordon in his last
Yeah.
fight. Absolutely ridiculous. This is one of the ones, obviously, we covered. I didn't pick him because I couldn't pronounce his name. Very stupid. I've done my research. The guy he's fighting has a 3-2 record.
Yeah.
Very, very green.
Adeshev.
He's already lost to Tyson Nam. That was at bantamweight, to be fair. He's now dropping down to flyweight as well. I cannot see past Sumadaji by finish. I'm going knockout finish.
Same.
That was easy.
where we got the differences so far?
We got the differences in method of victory for Lungiambula, method of finish, for Figgy.
Little Figgy.
We're exactly the same on Mason Jones. I think our method of finish is different for Umar, and we've picked different opponents for Leonardo versus Fiora.
Okay.
I'm curious to see where you go on this one. Actually, I'm pretty sure I know where you're gonna go on this one. Ricky Simone.
Yeah.
The man, the myth, the mullet. Against Gaetano Pireo. Gaetano. Gaetano has. Let's go for it. Pireo. There we go. Coming in with a 15-5-1 record against Ricky Simone at 16-3. Ricky Simone has lost his last two. Had lost two in a row, I should say, losing to Font and Uriah Faber, but he did come back beating Ray Borg on decision. And Ricky Simone should win this.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know enough about the Belgian El Tigre, but Ricky Simone's a really solid guy.
I feel like he's already had his wobble.
Yeah, Uriah Faber just caught him. Rob Font's a really, really good fighter.
Till that point,
Borg's really good too. I rate that Borg victory.
Yeah. Obviously, that was Borg's last fight in the UFC, but that was kind of due to a whole series of other reasons and issues that he'd had, nothing to do with Ray Borg's ability in the octagon. And yeah, I'm going Ricky Simone. I'm going Ricky Simone by decision. I think he's got some good hands. I don't know how much of a knockout guy he is. And this guy he's coming from European beatdown. I don't know how much credence I can give you when your 15 wins are in European beatdown. Now, that's no disrespect. They might have
don't know
amazing
until you know.
fighters. They might have amazing fighters. They might have shit fighters, and he just happens to be amazing and fought there. But you've got to come up with a better name for your promotion than European Beatdown.
I mean, they all have terrible names if you try and do more than just reduce them to letters. But like, let's not worry about how badly named organizations are.
Are you going
Next
Ricky
fight.
Simone by finish or by
Oh,
decision?
sorry, no, yeah, decision.
So we're matched on that one too. Ricky by decision.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, and that takes us to the headliner of the prelims, a fight we
we've
have
already
already
picked.
discussed, Tom Breeze versus Akhmedov, and we've already said it on the last show. Go check out our last show. It was a great episode. But we thought
we disrespected Akhmedov a lot here. I kind of forget that he is ranked, but I don't put too
he's
much
not
credence in his
bad.
wins, and his last performance was so bad.
He's not bad. He's not bad. But we kind of spoke about this. I feel like we're going to learn more about Chris Weidman than anything else.
Yeah. Look, we've both got Tom Breeze by decision on this one, right?
I've got Tom Breeze by knockout.
Okay, I got decision.
That's our difference. I might have been decision last week, but I've changed it. I've had a week to think about it. I'm switching it to knockout. And I want to be different. I want to right the wrong. So just to confirm on our picks as well, I ended 4 right, 6 wrong. You got 5 and 5.
5 right, 5 wrong. Yeah.
Not strong. We're not going to start talking about betting or betting picks yet. These are just our opinions. We don't want you putting our money down right now. We haven't got the record to show it.
It's not how accurate the shit we talk is. It's how good the shit we talk sounds when it comes out our mouths. Hit subscribe.
Well said. Takes us on to the main card. This is a lot of fun, this main card. Although there's a couple of fights I don't think should be on this main card. I think they should have switched it around a little bit, but we'll get to that. Okay. First fight does not match that criteria. Lerone Murphy coming in against Douglas Da Silva Andrade. This is going to be a lot of fun. Lerone Murphy, undefeated, 9-0-1, has been shot and lived. And he's undefeated. He's not just undefeated in the octagon. He's undefeated against death itself.
He's undefeated in life.
He's undefeated in life. But he's up against a dangerous guy. But again, Douglas Silva, no fights in 2020. His last performance, he beat Renan Barão, which again, it's hard to place how much. It's hard to know where that measures really when you're beating Renan Barão. What Renan Barão did you beat? But he's still a great fighter. I can't see past Lerone Murphy for this one. But I just feel there's something with Lerone Murphy. You look at the way he beat Ricardo Ramos in his last fight. You look at what he's been through in his life. You look at him physically, athletically. I think Douglas Silva's got a chance, but he'd have to put in a really good performance to get past him. And you look at his record, he beat Chito Vera, and that is a huge win in my opinion.
Absolutely.
But Chito Vera, there was the Chito Vera back then, and there's the Chito Vera that we've been seeing more recently. And again, those are two different people. So it's hard for me to say. I'm curious about it. I'm picking Lerone Murphy. I'm picking by a finish. I'm picking by knockout. But it's not my strongest pick. I would not be surprised if Douglas does something there.
I understand what you're saying. Again, though, I've got the exact same pick. I've got the Miracle by KO as well.
There you go. Well, who knows? Maybe we're going to be agreed and we're just equally smart. We'll find out. Find out this Wednesday. We have Tyson Nam versus Matt Schnell. Matt Schnell has had far more fights in the UFC than I thought, considering I don't remember him very well. But he's been in the UFC for a while. Both guys have dropped to flyweight in the past recently from bantamweight. Schnell was doing quite well. He won his first couple of fights at flyweight, but then lost to Pantoja in 2019. This is his first fight back. Again, one of these guys that didn't fight in 2020. This is an interesting one because Tyson Nam didn't start very well in the UFC, but since he's dropped down to flyweight, he's looking really dangerous. And I kind of think he's found his groove.
He's definitely found his weight class. So Matt Schnell, the Alexandra Pantoja win, loss, sorry, he is a good fighter. Matt Schnell came in through the Ultimate Fighter. He looks a decent fighter. He's one of those guys, everyone talks about how well he trains and all the potential. We just never really see him put it together. I've got Tyson Nam in this one by decision. I think Matt Schnell might come in as a favorite on this one. That's kind of what I expect. But I'm leaning towards Tyson Nam.
I'm not sure. Tyson Nam's looked really good in his last couple of fights, and I feel that it took him a while to get his confidence and his belief. And now he's in the right weight class. He's knocking guys out. He's looking impressive. I'm going Tyson as well. I'm going Tyson by knockout.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, Matt Schnell's no joke though. Like,
I just haven't seen enough of Matt Schnell. I've seen a lot of Tyson Nam. I've seen him improve. I've seen him get better.
Yeah, Matt Schnell kind of. I don't know. He had a bad start to his career, and then won against sort of like a lower level of competition for a bit. He has got some good names on there. Last loss, you know, I don't want to count it against him too much. It's against a good guy. I just think Tyson Nam is going to take this one. I've got it by decision though.
Okay, so I'm going knockout. You're going decision.
Yeah.
Next up, third fight on the card.
My girl.
It's our girl, Roxanne Modafferi, against Vivian Araujo. Vivian Araujo coming in with an impressive 9-2 record. Certainly no joke. 3-1 in the UFC. Lost to Jessica Ai when Jessica Ai was on her kind of roll and looking quite impressive. I think it was 2-4-5. So comeback fight after losing to Shevchenko for the title.
Yeah, the Usman Covington card.
And Araujo just not quite ready, but she's beaten Montana De La Rosa more recently, Alexis Davis, notable wins in the UFC. She's 3-1 in the UFC, but she's against Roxy, and Roxy is for everybody. Coming off a very impressive win against Andrea Lee, who's no joke and a top 10 ranked fighter in the division. Had lost her previous fight to girl that you really dislike and your girlfriend hates.
Lauren Murphy.
But Lauren Murphy's top 3 right now. She's looking like she's ready for a title shot. So there's no disrespect in that. And I think they're clearly giving Araujo the test fight. They're saying, okay, where are you in the division? How do you fare against a Roxanne Modafferi? I think Araujo probably might have the skills to get past her, but it's Roxy. I can't pick against Miguel. I'm going Roxy by decision.
Yeah, it's a bit of a pick 'em, but you know, I gotta go with my fighter. So I got Roxy by decision as well.
You gotta back your people.
Yeah, don't be surprised if Roxy finishes this fight with some ground and pound. That lady throws some mean ass elbows from on top.
Her stand-up's getting so much better as well. She's really getting well-rounded. You could see that in the Andrea Lee fight. Andrea Lee is a kickboxer and a Muay Thai fighter, and Roxanne was handling herself on the feet.
Absolutely. Yeah, both going Roxy by decision.
Roxy by decision. I just don't think she's got enough power or enough weapons to finish the fight, but I think she's got enough to control the fight and get what she needs to for the win.
It depends. If she gets that top position, she finishes fights.
Anything's possible. Next up, and a fight that I do not understand why it is on the main card when you look at some of the quality fights on the prelims. Ike Villanueva against Vinicius Moreira. Villanueva coming in at 16-11. Mauricius Moreira 9-4. Neither guy has a win in the UFC. That's 5 fights in total across the two of them. Ike lost his first 2. Vinicius lost his first 3.
To be fair to Villanueva, though, the first fight was at heavyweight against Chase Sherman, who, you know, isn't the best heavyweight in MMA, but he is a legit heavyweight. And Villanueva is a light heavyweight, or even middleweight. What's
it's light heavyweight. Light heavyweight. Well, he lost to Sherman. He then also got knocked out by Jordan Wright.
Yeah.
Vinicius Moreira, he's lost 3 times. He's lost to arguably better level competition. He's had to fight Eric Anders, Alonzo Menefield, and Paul Craig in the UFC. None of those are easy fights.
No.
So I'm not really ready to rule them out. But this is a must-win for both guys. I don't know. Maybe the narrative is that they're both fighting for their UFC contracts and they're going to go hell for leather and they've got the ability to knock each other out. But I was surprised to see those guys' records and have them be third fight from the top.
Yeah, the only thing that I could kind of suspect the reason it's on the main card is these are probably two of the heaviest guys fighting, and I know the UFC kind of likes to pander to the whole idea that that crowd that enjoys the bigger people fighting. You know, no
Yeah.
fight's better than a heavyweight fight. If it can't be a heavyweight fight, a light heavyweight fight. You know, it's the heaviest fighters we got fighting. There's the potential for an exciting knockout. I'm going Villanueva by knockout for this one. But yeah, it doesn't deserve to be on the main card. I think it's very much in the vein that they wanted to have some big boys on there.
I'm going Vinicius Moreira by decision, just to be contrary.
Keep it interesting. I'm
Absolutely. And
excited for the
he's
next
lost to
one.
better guys. He's lost to better guys. His record's
Yeah.
not quite as tattered. I'm sticking Moreira. I think he's going to have the tools to do it. That takes us on to the co-main events of the evening. Warley Alves versus a guy that we've been waiting to see since the first Fight Island again, Munir Lazez. Warley Alves coming in at 14-4, Lazez 10-1. Lazez is the man. What have we seen of this guy? He destroyed Al Hassan, pieced him up.
Yeah.
Maybe not the one-shot knockout that we saw Chaos Williams get, but maybe Chaos Williams got that one-shot knockout because of the damage accumulated by Lazez a couple of months earlier. I'm just chucking it out there. Not impossible that that's the case. He's got some serious skills. We've been desperate to see this guy fight. He's an instant fan favorite, future contender written all over him. Just a bit of a shame we've had to wait a couple of Fight Islands before he's been back on the card.
Yeah, I couldn't understand why it took this long to get him back in, but whatever, it's happening. I'm really excited. It's the co-main. Warley Alvarez, Warley Alves, kind of his his kind of big statement win was taking away Colby Covington's 0.
Young in his career, though.
Yeah, true. And he has beat a bunch of decent guys: Sergio Moraes, Nordin Taleb, Brahma, Alan Juban. But
he's lost when he's generally had to fight those higher level guys. He lost to James Krause. He lost to Randy Brown, who I think kind of just manhandled him a little bit.
Yeah, lost to Brian Barberena, who's a decent fighter, but it kind of gives you an idea of where Alves's level is. I'm going Munir Lazez, and just because I got super hyped up and excited for this one, I'm going by KO.
Damn, I wanted to go by KO because I don't want to have so many decisions on my picks, but I want to be different. I'm going by decision because Al Hassan's a beast and he didn't knock him out. So he might not be that type of finishing fighter. And you can say a lot of things about Warley Alves, but he's honest as there is. He's not going to quit easy, and he's tough as old boots. So yeah, I can't see Warley Alves winning this fight, though. I don't think he's got the skills. He might catch him. You never know. Things can happen.
He's got submissions,
Listen, we just had a main card where the first 3 fights on the main card were all won by large underdogs. So who the fuck knows? Anything can happen. Yeah. But it's not my expectation. Can't wait for this, though. It's going to be really good. And all of it builds to a fight that wasn't meant to be the main event. It became the main event. And I'm looking forward to it. I don't know if it quite has me grabbed in the same way that the previous main event did, but I'm very excited for Chiesa versus Magny.
It's going to be a cool fight. I'm a big fan of both guys. I remember Maverick winning the Ultimate Fighter. Neil Magny has been in the UFC since forever. His fight with Hector Lombard's one of my favorite ever fights. Great comeback performance, and I'm really excited for this one. I cannot look past Neil Magny. I think Chiesa's a really exciting guy. I think moving to 170 was the right decision. I think he's going to have a better run of it at welterweight than he did at lightweight. But I think Magny is a really tough test for him. I wouldn't say it's too soon or that he can't beat him. And I expect it will be a reasonably close fight. But I really think Magny's going to dominate this one. Sorry, that sounds really stupid. I think he's going to very clearly win this fight. He's not going to dominate it. It's going to be a good fight. But I just think it's going to be a very clear, 4-1, 3-2 decision for Magny. And I think I'm going to enjoy the fuck out of it.
I'm very torn on this one because I like Chiesa a lot, and I think Chiesa is a more dangerous fighter in many ways than Neil Magny, but Neil Magny is really well-rounded. Great gas tank. He doesn't get tired, builds as the fight goes on. Very good at doing enough to win the round.
Huge
Whatever
frame.
enough. He's a funny one, Neil Magny. He's not an exciting guy, but he's that guy where he's very good at doing enough to win the fight, whatever enough is. If enough is here, that's what he does. If enough is up here, he manages to do just a little bit more than that most of the time. And I think he's somebody that's a very high IQ fighter, learns a lot from his experiences, constantly getting better. Here's the thing. I was thinking Chiesa, and then somebody made a really good point, which is if you look at his 3 wins in the welterweight division, he's beaten Diego Sanchez, which I think we have to accept is a bit of a meaningless win in today's situation. Carlos Condit, that we both said was on an absolute slump.
Yeah.
Never the best on the ground as it is, but was just on a slump and never really in that fight and wasn't the right headspace, situation, anything for that. And RDA, and it's a hard one with RDA because he's such a great fighter, but you have to ask,
He's not a welterweight.
Was he a great fighter? How good at welterweight was he really?
I mean, he was good because he's a great fighter, but he cut too much weight at 55 and he was undersized at 70. And then they put him against another undersized fighter in Colby Covington. And Colby Covington's, as much as I hate him, he is a really unique talent in terms of his output and his cardio. And it didn't go RDA's way, obviously. So, yeah, RDA is one of those guys that just screams out for a 165 division. That's never going to happen. But, I see what you're saying. Chiesa's strength at schedule at welterweight, less than impressive. Honestly, though, if you go and look at his lightweight record, this guy's been fighting OGs since forever.
Sorry, just to confirm, interject. I've got no doubt on Chiesa's resume, reputation, ability, any of that. Big Chiesa fan. It's really just that question mark about how you handle welterweight. And it's only really significant in this fight, particularly because Neil Magny is fucking huge. He's not necessarily stacked, but he's a long, tall, wide frame, long arms. And, I know Chiesa's not small, but he's not Neil Magny.
He's a big welterweight. I know he used to make 55, but he is a big welterweight.
He's not Neil Magny big, though. And
I think they're going to weigh about the same come Wednesday night.
Weight, yes, but I'm talking about height, frame, reach,
Magny's
all
got
of
the
these
frame
things.
for sure.
I don't know what Chiesa can do to get the fight where he needs it to be.
Same thing he always does. Shamelessly chase takedowns, keep it scrappy, keep it dirty. Chiesa's never been an effective fighter from distance. And, Magny absolutely can pick him apart there. I don't think Chiesa's going to win any of that business. I think the game plan is going to be similar to Matt Brown Condit. Back him up to the fence, engage, take him down as much as you can. And, just keep hunting submissions, keep chaining submissions together until hopefully Magny makes a mistake, which I don't see happening, or until Magny gets tired, which I don't see happening. I think it's going to be fun. I think Chiesa's going to make it a bit of a dogfight, but I think Magny is going to control this everywhere it goes. And yeah, you're absolutely right. He's got the frame. I love Chiesa. I love Maverick. I would love to pick Chiesa. I love Magny too. That's not the reason I'm picking him though. It's just because it's just what my head tells me. It's just the sensible pick. This is what's going to happen. All 5 rounds. Magny's pretty much going to control everything, and Chiesa's going to steal a round or 2 here when he can do something special. But it's going to be a unanimous decision for our boy Magny. Done deal. And then I want to see Chiesa rematch Condit.
I think Chiesa's going to surprise people. I'm going Chiesa by submission.
I wouldn't hate it.
I think he's going to be losing the fight when it happens. It's hard, man. It's hard to say. Let's not forget as well, Magny's not always delivered his best performances in the octagon either. He doesn't always start particularly well. It's the just enough thing as well. I just feel like Chiesa, I don't know. I feel like Chiesa's feeling like this is a moment for him. Like he can make a bit of a statement. He can really establish himself as somebody in the division. I think he's going to surprise you. I'm going Chiesa by submission. I don't have the best arguments to back up why. I just feel
I know what
that...
you're saying. He's a submission magician. You know, he does get caught as easily as he can catch people sometimes, but you know, he's definitely, you know, just like I said
tell
earlier,
I'm not confident on it because I'm literally crossing my arms after I made the pick. So I'm not sure. And you made really good arguments for why it could be Neil Magny, but I don't want to pick the same main event as you this week. And I like Chiesa. And
okay, I promise next week I will let you make all of your picks first. But just so you know, I do mine before the show and I write them down, so it's not going to change mine.
Fair enough. Fair enough. No, I don't know. The thing is that I do make my picks beforehand, but I don't like having them as certainty. I always like having a discussion about things, and I'll quite often hear something that makes me think a good point or change my mind.
Actually, you did change one of mine today, but it was just the method. But that's a good point. Wednesday's going to be a lot of fun because we've got Wednesday and then straight into 257. What we're going to do is another show on Thursday. So
we'll do the breakdown of everything that happens on Wednesday night's card, our whole look ahead at UFC 257 as an event, our picks, our predictions, talking about the media and the press conferences that have come out. We'll be talking about Countdown. I don't know how excited you were to have Conor McGregor back on a Countdown, but I thought that was pretty fucking cool. And yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. It's a really big week for the UFC. They're kicking off with a hell of a run, and it's not slowing down from here. February's already looking stacked. March looks fantastic, but no, we've got the big one coming up. Wednesday still to come, and we'll be covering it from then. Hopefully have Elias on somebody else on Thursday's show. And everyone, if you are watching, please don't forget to like and subscribe because we need it. Please watch. Till next time.
I hear you. I'm going to subscribe right after this.
Good man. Peace out.
All right,
Catch you on Wednesday.